Well, hello everyone and welcome to another One Piece review. This time I'm talking about episodes 62 to 65, which is the start of the famous Alabasta arc, or saga, or something like that. I don't quite know. But it is a name I've heard of before. I think it's one of the ones I mentioned at the end of last video where I was like, oh, I know some arcs that are like coming up, and here it is. So, I've got my nice structural PowerPoint that I had last time, very similarly here. First, we can talk about Alabasta beginning. Now, I assume, like, maybe technically this isn't part of the Alabasta storyline, like maybe no, actually it definitely is, because now that I'm thinking about it, on Crunchyroll, it said they replaced East Blue, like the saga at the top of it, with Alabasta. So it technically has begun, okay? But there's a few things to say. Firstly, things feel a bit different now in a few different regards. One is that especially in the first two episodes, but it does continue into the other two episodes too, everyone feels a lot more emotive and expressive, and they're like having a lot more interactions together, like the crew, which they haven't really had in the past. This is a product of like them kind of having nothing else to really do beyond like interact, because they're on a ship for like a little bit of time. I guess that makes sense. But also it definitely feels different. Like the interactions to me feel more fast-paced and quippier. There's like Nami and Usopp have this dynamic now, like a comedic kind of duo dynamic where they're like, I don't know, they were both freaking out a bunch of like, they were both scared, kind of like a comedic duo of like fear. So, it's just slightly different, I guess. And just generally, like shots like this, like you can see on the screen right now, it just felt a bit more interesting to look at. Now, I don't know if this is like me just because I'm just so excited to be on this new Alabasta arc, or if it actually is different. Because, I don't know, I noticed a lot more like little shots like this where I'm like, oh, this is like a really cool framing of a shot. And it felt just generally like there was more animation going around, like more like actual movement instead of like still frames or like, parallaxing of like two different layers or something like that. But yeah, it's not like a big change, but it's like a slightly like noticeable change where I'm like, oh, this is like slightly better now. So yeah, that's the first thing, Things feel a little bit different. The next thing to say, and this image has very little to do with it, is that these 4 episodes were the easiest and the quickest that I've ever watched 4 episodes of One Piece. I'm loving the adventure element to the Grand Line, where I just don't know anything that's going on. The first thing that happens is that they arrive and there's a giant whale. I'm like, oh my god, a giant whale, this is crazy. For all I know, this could be like a 20-episode saga with this giant whale. Like, I have no idea what's going to happen. What are we going to explore? Like, where's this giant whale going to take us? So I don't know, I enjoyed this thoroughly, and I was very, very engaged. There was nothing really emotional in this. Like, for instance, still my peak of peak One Piece so far, in terms of at least emotions, has been like the Nami, like, final episode, right? When she's leaving her, oh my god, I don't remember her village's name. Whatever, Along Park, whenever she's leaving her place. That's still the emotional peak, but this is, like, in terms of engagement, how much I'm enjoying the show, this is definitely the overall, like, peak so far. So, I love it. Great. The other thing is that just generally, I was, like, beyond the adventure element that I think was fantastic, I was on the edge of my seat just for every little detail about the Grand Line. I was so excited. Like, every little thing I'd learn, I'm like, oh, that's, like, super cool. Like, the fact that the everything, like the weather, the temperature, the currents, the clouds, the magnetism, all this is like random, so it makes it so, or like essentially random, it makes it so difficult to navigate. I'm like, that's like super cool, what a cool idea. And then there's like the elements of the log pose, which we learn about, which I'm gonna ask some clarifying questions like right at the end of this. I have like a section for questions and clarifications. But my understanding is that when you stay on a particular island, it logs or records or slightly acclimatizes to the magnetic field between your current island and the next island. So it literally like will point to the next island basically if you stay long enough on the current island. And you basically use it to hop from island to island, which is a cool thing. I like it. That's like super, what a cool idea to kind of get around this magnetism issue of the random kind of fluctuations of the magnetic field here because of all these islands that have different magnetisms. Awesome. And then the final, probably most interesting, coolest thing is the setting up an eventual goal, right? Of no matter what starting island you start at, they all eventually converge on this one final one, which I wrote the name down somewhere. Raftel is, I think, what I wrote down. Hopefully that's correct. I'm not going to Google it in case I Google it and it shows me the island or something, or yeah. But yeah, which apparently this is an island that only Gold Roger has confirmed exists, or has like been there, I guess, at the end of the Grand Line. So my goodness, it's so exciting. Like, my immediate thought when I heard it was, oh my god, what if the One Piece is there? And then I think, was it Usopp or Sanji? Someone basically says like, oh, that would mean the One Piece could be there. I'm like, true. So yeah. Now it is like the question of me who knows nothing about the show. I'd have absolutely no idea if the anime or like the story, the manga at this point, if it's even gotten to that yet, or if that's like a thing that'll be right at the end of the story, basically? Or is it going to be a thing that's like at the end of Alabasta, they're like there? I don't think it's going to be like an Alabasta thing. The thing is, like, I said it last time, but I truly have no idea how much of the rest of the story is about the Grand Line. Like, my assumption is, just because of how much build-up we've had up until this point, it feels like the rest of the story should be on the Grand Line, because that's where all the interesting stuff is. Like, all the rest of the world is kind of boring compared to the Grand Line. But, like, maybe not. Like maybe like we get to this island and it turns out there's nothing there. It's just like a boring island. And then what do we do now? Yeah. So I don't know. All of this was super cool, and I'm very excited for the future of One Piece. But yeah, those are my overall kind of thoughts on like, oh my god, Alabasta, and oh my god, Grand Line, stuff like that. The next thing is that we start with the whale. So we have like a 2-episode storyline here where there's a giant whale, which, okay, just overall, there are like multiple elements of this whale that make it super cool. The first is that it's super cool that there's just a giant whale at the beginning of the Grand Line. Like, you first enter, and I'm thinking, like, what's going to be here? Like, what's it going to be like? Are they going to be, like, enemies that are going to attack us? No, there's a giant whale that is literally just, like, standing up. It has 2 eyes, and you can hardly see you because you're so small, and it's crazy. So I love that. The fact that there's a giant whale in its own right is amazing. And look, I have a nice picture of it here, okay? It's also super cool that inside the whale, there's, like hallways, like mechanical looking hallways, and like there's basically a giant ocean like world inside the whale. I'm like, this is also super cool. And the idea of like the only way to treat such a big whale is to kind of build these things inside the whale so that you can like administer things like sedative, like what was his name? I wrote it down, like Crocus does. It's super cool. Love this. This is awesome. Awesome adventure, fantasy, like sci-fi, like all of this. I like it. Merges all the stuff I like into one thing, which is super cool. The third thing is the whale backstory was pretty good too. I like that. Like that was really cool. Like a promise of like he was basically, you know, he was a little baby following these pirates when they entered the Grand Line, and they, out of caution, like wanting to look after him, they left him behind so that they could go and do their thing and not getting him in any danger. And then eventually they promised they'd come back to get him. But apparently Crocus has confirmed, like through reliable sources, that they didn't make it. Like, or like, sorry, they went into the Grand Line, they got scared off, and they've left basically. And the implication is that like they probably would want to come back and get their friend that they left behind, this whale. But they're too, like, there's no chance. They're never going to do it because they're never going to enter the Grand Line, because once you enter the Grand Line, it's tough to get out, right? So yeah, that was the third element of what I liked a lot. And the fourth is the resolution of this entire, like, whale story, which I thought was awesome, which is that Luffy basically starts fighting him out of nowhere. And I'm like, what's going on? Why is he fighting this whale? And he was doing it so that he can establish himself as a rival for this whale. And he stops fighting him, and he decides, and he declares, like, I wrote the quote here. He says, "Your buddies are dead. I'm your rival forever." And the implication, or the direct like thing that he says, is that, you know, I'm gonna go now, but don't leave. You stay here, and you don't bang yourself on the what do they call it? The Grand Line, like, entrance or whatever. The Red Line. Because one day I'm going to come back, and you better not be dead, because we're going to finish our fight. So yeah, this was cool. I like that too. So this whale, awesome. A lot of good stuff in this. The next thing about this set of episodes is that there's, like I said, the old man Crocus. I liked him. He was cool. He's basically just an old man who's living his daily life. Like, he lives unbothered, or like slightly annoyed, I guess, throughout his daily life. Like, living inside this damn whale, living on was it a lighthouse that he was guarding? Something like that? Yeah. He's pretty cool. Yeah. And apparently, you know, at the end of this set of episodes, we find out that he knows someone called Roger. Who could that be? I assume it is Gold Roger. That is my assumption, right? Oh my goodness, he was like friends with or knew Gold Roger back in the day. But it literally could be anyone. It could be like Gold Roger's brother, or like even father or mother or something like that, or sister, or maybe his kid, or it could be like the ghost of Gold Roger, which I keep thinking is going to happen like one day. I don't know why I think that, but yeah. Or it could just be someone else called Roger, and it is a misdirect. But I think it is Gold Roger, the king of the pirates, and it would be super cool. I mean, it makes sense. Like, it's an old man. He's at the beginning of the Grand Line. He's lived there 50 years at least. It makes sense, you know? So yeah, super cool. Now, the other thing with this old man is that we get the greatest gag in all of One Piece so far, which is the stare-off, the epic stare-off, which is that we get like 50 shots from different, not 50, but we get like 5 different shots from different angles and back and forth between like our Straw Hat staring at him and him staring at us, and the fact that he gets repeated like 3 or 4 times throughout the episode, it's so good and so funny. This is the funniest thing that One Piece has done so far. So yeah, I should probably do like I should probably keep track of this and like have all my favorite gags like listed somewhere, and then do a tier list or something like that. But who knows if I'll remember to do that next time. But yeah, it was very funny. So yeah. Then, right at the end of the set of episodes, the last thing I want to say about this Crocus stuff is that Crocus has an interaction with Luffy where he says that, like, you need to choose carefully what island you're going to choose to go forward in the Grand Line with, right? Because, you know, it's an important thing that you're committing to and that you're not going to be able to come back. And Luffy says, I love his response. He says, if I don't enjoy the path that we go on, then I'll just come and do it again. And I'm like, oh, it's like super cool, you know? He's not intimidated by the Grand Line at all. If he does the journey across the Grand Line, taking the path that is like set before him because of his just random choice that he makes at the beginning, then he can just come back and start the Grand Line all over again and choose a different route. And that's super cool. So we love that. So yeah, old man Crocus, we love him. And Luffy as well. Now, the final thing is that we get the introduction of Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine. And I love these two as well. They're very melodramatic or like overdramatic. I don't know which is like the proper term for this, but like the key example is when they get to the Cactus Island or whatever it's called. And they dramatically like jump off like backwards, like into the water, and then they start swimming to the shore. And I'm like, this is super funny. So I like it. I like the way they speak. They speak like very, I don't know, dramatically. So yeah, these two are great. I like Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine. But yeah, that's all the whale stuff. Now we have, oh, I forgot to like skip through all the images. Okay, we got the great whale, we got the great crocus, we got the great Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine. And now we've got Cactus Island and Baroque Works. So we'll talk about this. Firstly, we have the traveling there stuff. So actually arriving there. And it is very difficult. And we get like a nice chunk of like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes of them just traveling there. And even with a log pose, it is difficult to get there, right? The weather is changing. It's snowing at one point. It's sunny at one point. There's lightning at one point. I liked that we get to see this. Like, we get to see the difficulty of navigating. And even Nami is, like, admitting that, like, it's just out of her depth right now. So it's super cool. Now, the one thing that I'm cautious on is that I loved seeing this. I hope we still see this in the future. I hope this isn't a thing now where the next time we go to another island, it's going to be, like, super easy and we're just going to, like, smooth sail. There's not going to be any lightning. There's not going to be any difficulty. Like, I understand over time, they're going to adapt to get better at this, right? Like, I would be shocked if in, like, 500 episodes from now, they're still struggling with this. Like, I'm sure Nami is going to adapt to this, right? I just hope we like still have a little bit of difficulty and say like 10 to 20 episodes from now. I hope it's not like resolved that quickly because I like it. It is really cool to see the challenge of like navigating the seas at this point. So yeah, that's the first thing. The next thing is the welcome party. This was super cool. It adds to the excitement of like, oh my goodness, our crew has finally reached the Grand Lines. Or, you know, it's still early days. We're in the 3rd episode at this point, I think, into arriving here. So it is still exciting to kind of be here. So yeah, like this. Then the next thing is we finally get, in this set of episodes, the first, like, in a long time, proper fight where Zoro is able to fight at his full strength, like, without being injured or something like that, and he's going all out. And it was great. I loved it. I loved when he showed up on this, like, rooftop and was aura farming with the moon behind him and is just sitting there, like, super cool. And it's, like, all these pirates or bounty hunters, and he's taking them all out. This was all great. Yeah, so I'm excited. I hope we get more of this in the future. I'm certain we will. But it was really cool. And then the final thing I want to say about these 2 episodes is Baroque Works, which is something that I definitely heard of before. Like when I saw this mailbox before they made the big announcement of Baroque Works or whatever, the term Baroque Works came to mind. I'm like, oh, I've definitely heard of this. Like I didn't know if it was an arc or if it was like a character or something like that, but I had definitely heard of it. So that's the first thing. But I learned here that they are a company of bounty hunters that are targeting the new pirates or new people who enter the Grand Line, basically. Which is a good idea. Like it's a genius idea, you know? I mean, at some point you're obviously going to get into counter people like, you know, maybe Gold Roger's crew or something like that, where it's like, oh, we probably shouldn't have messed with them. But what a great idea, you know? Target these new people who are a bit disorientated still on like traversing the Grand Line and take their stuff and everything. So we love that. So that was cool. We had another good gag with I don't know his name, I didn't write it down at all, but it's the guy who has like crazy hair and like shoots cannons, or not cannons, shoots shotguns, I think is what Zoro says about him. But he has a gag where he'll like be saying something like blah, 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 whatever, and it's like, he'll cough, ma, to like readjust, and I'm like, this is so funny, so I like that too. Another good gag in this set of episodes. Then we learn a little bit of lore, which is that everyone in Baroque Works has a number, and the lower your number is, the better, or the more strong or more powerful you are. Basically, it's like a power scaling or like power level kind of thing. My question is, though, we get 2 people who have names. Like we get Miss Wednesday and we get Miss Valentine, and both of these don't have numbers. Now, my assumption must be that we met Mr. 9, we met Mr. 8, which is the cannon guy, or the shotgun guy, I think. I'm pretty sure is number 8. So I would assume that Miss Wednesday would be number 7. And then we also meet, was it Mr. 5, I think? So therefore, I would assume that Miss Valentine is the only missing number so far, which would be number 6. That's my guess. So Miss Wednesday would be 7, and then Miss Valentine would be 6. But I'm not sure. So yeah. But then the other thing we learn is that the Baroque Works' boss has a secret that has been outed by 2 people, by the guy we see here, the shotgun guy, who is a big, like, I didn't actually write it down because I think he's dead at this point, but, like, he's the captain guard of, like, the Alabasta kingdom, basically. Also, I haven't mentioned it at this point, but Alabasta is a kingdom. I didn't know what it was. Like, I had no idea if it would be, like, a person or, like, just a generic arc name, or if it would be, like, a location on the sea or something like that, but no, it is a kingdom, which is interesting. And this guy was, like, a guard of the kingdom or something like that, or guarding the princess or something. But basically him, and I wrote down the other person's name, Princess Nefertari Vivi. They apparently have a secret, or they've apparently found out the secret from the boss of the Baroque Works crew or company. So just right now, I have absolutely no idea what the secret could be, because I have absolutely no idea what this boss will be. I cannot imagine it would be like someone we've met before, because I don't know how that would possibly happen. It could be someone we've heard of before, but no one is jumping to mind. I'm like, oh, that's a person who could be alive and like still there. So I'm not quite sure. Like, I don't have any guesses. My one guess right now, just based on what One Piece is up until this point, I would assume this Baroque Works boss is being overdramatic, and it's going to be like some secret which is not really that important, like maybe he's bald or something, and these two have discovered that he has a wig or is like bald or something like that. That's probably my guess right now, but yeah, I don't quite know. But it is exciting. I'm excited to learn more about Alabasta Kingdom and the Baroque Works boss and who is he and what are the other numbers and all that. Now, the other thing is that Vivi is a character name that I've heard of before, I think. Unless I'm thinking of like the anime Vivi, whatever, some Vivi anime thing. But yeah, I feel like I've heard this name before. Now, we get a picture of her, and she has blue hair, and she looks very similar to Miss Wednesday. So my guess right now is that it is literally Miss Wednesday, and Miss Wednesday is like under disguise or something. And it would make sense that she'd be with the shotgun guy as well, if she's the actual princess. So, I don't know. There's not really anything really hinting at that beyond the fact that they have very similar, well, they have the same hair color, and they look very similar in the picture, and obviously what Miss Wednesday looks like. But, yeah, I don't know. That's my last thing on this Baroque's Work introduction of 2 episodes. I have no idea how long this arc will go for. My guess would be that, firstly, Alabasta, I would assume it's going to be like somewhat of a similar length to East Blue, so like, I don't know, like 60 episodes or something like that. And then my guess would be the Baroque Works. Well, like, obviously we've had like the whale arc, I'd call it that arc or whatever, and that was 2 episodes. I'd say Baroque Works, since it's something that I've heard of before, I would assume it's decently significant. So maybe like 10 episodes, something like that. That's my guess, 10 episodes of Baroque Works. Like, I assume what we're going to have to do is that now... How did these episodes end, actually? I guess the Mr. 5 and... What was her name? Miss Valentine. Like, now that they've shown up and they attacked and there's a whole Alabasta thing, I guess we'll fight these 2 next, and then from there we'll have to go to Alabasta Kingdom for some reason, and there'll be a bit of traveling there. And then maybe when we're at Alabasta Kingdom, there'll be some more assassination attempts or something like that, and then... we'll eventually have to go and confront the Baroque Works boss. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it would be like 15 episodes. Like, it could be decently long, actually. Obviously, we're not going to be wrapped up with Alabasta by the end of this, but to finish with the whole Baroque Works company, it feels like maybe a 15-episode thing. That's my guess. Like, I'm locking that in. 15 episodes. So what's that in Ari terms? Like, 4 weeks? Like a month? A month from now, I'll be done with Baroque Works? Who knows? But yeah. Anyway, I have one miscellaneous thing, which is that there is a new ED in these set of episodes, an ending, right? Ending song and all that. It's okay. I might watch it again. Like, the visuals didn't really stand out to me at all. I think I have an image of here, like, for instance, Usopp from the surface. But the song was good. I like the song, actually. It was really nice. I might just listen to it, you know, hear the song again. Now, again, I'm not keeping track of these endings, so I'm fairly sure this is a new ED. Like, I did go back and listen to the, like, 2 episodes ago, and it was different. But I didn't really, none of the EDs so far have stood out to me. Even, to be honest, none of the openings have really stood out to me either, except for the famous, like, first opening song that I've heard of before. So yeah, but that's my miscellaneous note. Now, all I have left are questions and clarifications, and I only have 3 of them at this point, and 2 of them are kind of trivial. One of them is, what is Sanji's knowledge or, like, interaction, or I guess more so, not knowledge, because I know he knows about the Grand Line, but, like, what is his interaction with the Grand Line? And my question is, like, obviously I know that Zeph has been on the Grand Line and, like, come back, right? And I know that at some point, Zeph picked up Sanji, right? Somewhere. But I assume this is like after he'd come back from the Grand Line, right? I could obviously figure this out if I went back and looked at those episodes, and I'm sure they mentioned it there. But I just don't know. Like, there's no chance that, like, that Sanji, when he was a kid, was on the Grand Line, right? No, it must be when he came back, because, like, it must be after Zeph had come back from the Grand Line, because this is the event. His interaction with Sanji is what led to his, like, eventual losing of his leg and having to retire and all that, and to become a chef. Not a chef, but, like, star baratier and all that. So yeah, I feel like I just answered my own question, but please clarify if you want. Where did Sanji meet Zeph? And I'm sure when I say clarify, I mean, I probably have this answer somewhere in my notes, but I don't recall. The second thing is, I know that Gold Roger was executed 20 to 22, something like that, years ago. But how long ago was he in his prime? That's like my question at this point. And if I'm meant to know at this point, if I'm not meant to know, then don't tell me. But like, how long of a gap was there between him going and finding this last island and being king of the pirates and having the reputation of being the greatest, like the king of the pirates and all that? How long after that was he executed, is my question. Or was he still in his prime at that point? Obviously he is, like in the flashback we see during Logtown, it is like, he does seem to still be incredibly well respected in his prime, basically. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that, like, at what point did he, like, I don't have a good timeline for any of this. Maybe it's something I'll learn later, so if it is, please don't tell me. But, like, how long ago did he enter the Grand Line for the first time in that, like, flashback we got, like, in that last Logtown arc? Like, how long ago was that? And then how long ago did he leave the Grand Line? And, like, how long ago has he known, like, Crocus for? Like, stuff like that. Because Crocus is, like, 70 and he saw the whale, like, 50 years ago. Like, it wasn't, like, 50 years ago that that Gold Roger entered the Grand Line, was it? And again, I feel like this is something that I might have already got the answer for that I've just forgotten at this point, because there was that flashback in the bar back when they first entered Lockdown and Luffy was learning about Gold Roger. So maybe there was an answer there that I've just forgotten. So I don't know. That's my second question. The final question is about the log pose. Now, I think I understand it decently well, which is that you start at a place in an island and you basically will pick up the magnetism between that island and the next island. And because of that, the log pose will like point you in the direction of the next island. Fair enough. So you're starting here, you follow the log pose, you end up at the next island. And then when you're on that next island, the magnetism will then adjust your log pose to point to the next island, so you can go forward to see the next one. But what that means is that when you arrive, if I'm understanding correctly, when you arrive on a new island, once your log pose has already adjusted to the next one, then there's literally no way for you to, I guess, use the log pose to get back to the other one. Now, before the log pose adjusts, like in that brief period of a few hours to a few days before the log pose adjusts to the new island, you should theoretically be able to go back, because you could just take the opposite direction of wherever the log pose is pointing, right? But once it's adjusted, it is like a one-directional thing, where like now that you're on this island, you're kind of stuck there and you can only go forward. But this is like weirdly contradicted by the fact that like people like Miss Wednesday and Mr. Nine, like they can obviously go back to where the whale was from their Cactus Island. So how do they do that? And obviously there's the Alabasta Kingdom, which I assume is not on this island. So how would they get from like Alabasta Kingdom back to this like Cactus Island? And like I'm sure obviously there's an answer for this. It will be addressed. But at this point, like, I just want to know, am I not understanding the rules and I'm meant to understand at this point, like how these people can do this? Or is that maybe like later on, my assumption right now is that later on we're going to learn of a better way to navigate and we're not going to rely on this log pose anymore. There is a way to get around like from island to island without like relying on the log pose. Maybe like once you've mastered the Grand Line enough, like the navigation, you get used to it and you can kind of like do it without the log pose. I don't know. But it feels a bit weird. Like, yeah, if you can go from here to the Kingdom of Alabasta, then and it seems that people can get back from the Kingdom of Alabasta to here, then what's stopping you from going back to where the whale was and then just picking another starting route, which Crocker said was like impossible, or like once you're committed, you're like there. So I don't know. It's a little bit like I'm not sure if I'm understanding incorrectly, or like maybe it's like just a thing that I'll learn later. So yeah, but that's One Piece this week. Very exciting. I'm looking forward to the next time. But that's it. Thanks for watching. Subscribe right now and see you next time.